For real, who gets cut off in the middle of stories like that by an uncharged phone? Um, where was I? So what happened in those weeks and months during her death and dying, but even after, was honestly that sense of protection. When I talk about those orbits, that was real. And that wasn't something that was culturally prescribed by us, right? Our group of people was all different people, from, Catholic to Jewish to agnostic to, Buddhist. There wasn't necessarily any one of our friends is Quaker. I mean, there was no particular spiritual tradition that we were drawing from. But what came naturally was that level of protection. It wasn't culturally or religiously prescribed, but it came naturally to actually circle up around her. And it was something that she wanted to protect her privacy. So there were actually very few people who even knew that she was sick. Many people didn't know who the people were that were taking care of her. I mean, I met many people afterwards that were like, oh, she was my doctor. And oh, she was a colleague of ours I didn't even know. And that was the way she wanted it. Because the other thing to know about when you are dying is that it's not just after you're dead the vultures come, it's while you're dying. And people love to go to the person who's sick, the person who's dying, and ask them all kinds of questions. How are you doing? What are you doing? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do that? And she's like, speak to my executive assistants, which was us, mostly me. So I made calls to people when we found out. She and I were together when she got diagnosed, and I called people and let them know because she didn't want to be making all the calls. But I'll tell you what, telling that story over and over again to a lot of people, it's like reliving it. But I was happy to do it because I wasn't actually the one living it, right? I was living it secondhand, but I wasn't the actual person dying. That is a great protection that we can offer people. That is not at all part of our culture and not necessarily even part of our medical thing, right? Our structure or our policies, so that people find out. And all these strangers know about your diagnosis before even people in your life. You're already seeing, getting PET scans and MRIs and CTs and seeing oncologists, and depending on the kind of cancer you have, a gynecologist or a gastroenterologist. And people are already so involved in your death and dying, and you haven't even told your community yet. It's just a very different thing, but it's also very culturally prescribed in a lot of ways because it's how we participate. Instead of like, hey, I need a refractory period. I need a pause. It's go, 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 because you don't have a moment to lose. It's like, correct. And also, I need to gather my circles so I know what my levels of protection are going to be. That would be my wish in terms of our cultural protection. And that protection remained for months and even years since then. The circle of people around her are the circle of people that were also protected, right? By the circles around them. The farther away you away, obviously, the less protected you want to be, but also the less protective you are. But the people who were adjacent to me protected me, and that was their job, and they knew that. Your job isn't to ask me all the questions about her. Your question is to ask me about me. How am I doing? How am I coping? Because I'll only tell you right now, I'm not coping. I mean, I am right in this very moment, but at the time and in other moments. That's the job of the circles around me and the circles that were around us that were circling her. And that is something that is that is a privilege of culture, and that is not a privilege we extend to people here because of our medical culture, but also because, and to some extent, our lack of culture in some ways, but also that idea that like all the information should be out there, all the information, and everybody should be doing right away. Just thinking about like what are all the aspects of our culture, the way we operate while we live, that absolutely penetrate all the ways that we die. We say this in birth that you labor as you live. You get to die the way you live. You live busy, you'll die busy. You live protected and understanding who are your inner circles and who are your outer circles and what their roles are. You will die with those people in place. And that was something she understood, that we understood through her, and I feel very grateful for that knowledge. I didn't have it before. And her dying and her death absolutely changed every single cell in my body and my entire course of my life. So I would never wish for a million years that she wasn't here, but I would never wish for a million years that my life hasn't changed the way it has. So those are other questions that I have for you as you think about all this. Where are all the privileges in this? Who gets to design their births, their lives, their deaths? It's all the same people. Who's protected, who's not, and why? And what are things in our system, in our policies, in our medical culture that we can change, that we can affect, that can allow people to be better held, respected, loved, and protected? Just as we want them to be protected when they're here, we want them to be protected as they leave. I think that's all I got for you. Oh, the ball analogy. Forgot to tell you that. And then my phone is probably going to die again. The ball in the box. When grief is new and big, it's a giant ball in a box, and there's a buzzer on the side. The buzzer is the pain that you feel from grief, and that ball is constantly pushing on the buzzer when it's big, when grief is big and new and fresh. There is not a single movement you can make. You can't drive to the grocery store. You can't read an email. You can't watch a commercial without pain button getting punched all the damn time. That is grief when it is new and is fresh. And for the people to whom are closest to that grief or experiencing that grief, that is the way it feels for them. So when we talk about circles of protection, that's why we need to protect them. All they are doing is living raw, painful grief. But in time, it doesn't make the grief less. People say time heals all things. No, it doesn't. It shrinks all things. Your spine, your skin, your brain, also grief. It shrinks that ball. So it's still in the box and it's still banging around, but when it hits that buzzer, woof, that grief will come right back to you as hard and fast and painful as it was in that moment. But that ball won't lay on that buzzer. It'll bounce away, so it'll also leave more quickly. Look that up. Ball in the box, grief. It's a fabulous analogy. It is not mine, but I would say it fits this whole process perfectly to me. So I hope you enjoyed story time and my perspective on this. Y'all have any more questions or any comments after this? You're more than welcome to reach out to me via Canvas or university email or whatever. I'm happy to talk about this stuff. These experiences are obviously very heartfelt and things that I care a lot about and I have thought a lot about, I write a lot about. So, I do a lot of writing and write poetry and stories, and a lot of that is based on these experiences, because they have, like I said, changed literally every single cell of my body, and in a lot of good ways. Thanks.